After an intense strategic battle in the skies alongside Kido family, Momo and her group landed safely on Shimane for their goal. But when Seiko and the others arrived at the castle where the Uchida no Kazuchi was said to be located, it turned out to be a trap, as new enemies were once again waiting for them there. Will they be able to stand against yet another seemingly powerful obstacle in lifting Momo's curse? Let's find out. As this man was bowing before her, the look of confusion on Seiko's face was evident as she wondered why he was doing such a thing. In an instant, the man suddenly punched Seiko, resembling Paul Phoenix's burning fist move, sending her flying toward the wooden pillar behind her. Upon landing on the ground, Seiko quickly adjusted her position, but when she turned back to face the man, she was utterly shocked to see he had vanished in front of her as smoke scatters around. While she was still bewildered, the man suddenly appeared to her left, prepared to unleash an axe kick. Fortunately, she managed to sense it just in time, allowing her to roll dodge forward, causing the attack to strike only the wooden floor. Nevertheless, the man immediately followed up his axe kick with a sweep kick, prompting Seiko to leap onto all fours to evade the strike. After both of them stood up again, they exchanged a flurry of punches and kicks, blocking and dodging each other's attacks. However, even though Seiko was able to block the man's strikes, it was clear that she was struggling. Every single strike carried immense power, and she also noticed that he was deliberately targeting her vitals. She found herself commenting inwardly about this man's overwhelming power as she continued stepping back and parrying, refusing to give in. After the man's jumping turning kick, Seiko added an admiration that despite everything, the vital targeting moves, their trajectories, were easy to read. While she thought this to herself, she regained her composure and prepared to counter the man. When he attempted to hit her with a straight left, she dodged by stepping slightly inward. She slipped into his body's range and immediately readied both of her hands. As soon as she positioned herself right in front of the man's torso, the look of surprise on his face was apparent, while her expression showed she was locked on. She delivered a lunging punch to the man, but to her shock, she simply passed right through him, as his entire body seemed to turn into smoke. Bewildered, she glanced back in disbelief after phasing through him, and while she was still distracted by surprise, the man suddenly appeared in front of her and instantly struck her with an unorthodox uppercut that connected solidly with her chin, certainly shaking her entire world. The man followed up this strike with a double kidney hit that landed directly on Seiko's body. The combo didn't end there, as a whirlwind-like force formed behind the man's left elbow while he prepared his fist. He shouted the word "Seta" and forcefully delivered an Oi-Zuki on steroids to Seiko, launching her backward and causing the wooden pillar behind her to shatter upon impact. The excruciating pain was visible on her face, while the man struck a cocky pose as he waited for her to fall. Afterward, the man brushed his hair with his hand to fix it as he kept his gaze on Seiko. We were then shown Seiko slumped against the shattered wall caused by the impact of her beaten body being hurled into it. She groaned in pain from her injuries, clutching her side as she panted heavily. The mysterious man began approaching her, praising her, and stating he never imagined a warrior existed who could surprise him. When the two faced each other without fighting, Seiko weakly asked if this man was a ninra, the smoke yokai, while he adjusted his gloves and simply stared at her. As a ninra drew near, he immediately stomped on her side, the very spot she was holding, causing her to scream in pain as she tried to push him off. He demanded that she accept her defeat, adding that since they had already traded blows, she should now understand that she couldn't possibly win against him. Even so, Seiko refused to submit, telling him to stop acting like some kind of warrior and pointing out that his ability was a total sham. Just as Seiko was about to add something to her statement, she suddenly attempted to kick the man in the balls, but he reacted instantly and turned that part of his body into smoke. His eyes flared as he called her pig, followed by a kick to her body that sent her flying once more. Seiko's body slammed into the ground with a heavy thud from the attack, drawing the attention of Momo, who was at the lower level of the castle, upon hearing the loud noise it produced. Worried, she asked Vimola about the sound they just heard, to which Vimola, startled, replied that there was a fairy on her head. As they fled from the swarm of smoke ninjas, she wished inwardly for her granny to be okay. Following this, we returned to Seiko's situation, where we were shown that she was now unconscious, her face bloodied from her nose. Smoke began gathering above her, and before long, Ininra's body formed from it and stood directly on top of her, causing her to awaken and scream in pain once again. As she groaned from the agony, Ininra commented on how incredible she was and said that if only she had accepted defeat earlier, she wouldn't have had to suffer like what was happening now. Seiko's ribs began to crack under the pressure as he added that he envied her spirit. He further stated that, from a biological standpoint, it was contradictory not to fear death. He said that the moment one possessed a physical body, they could never escape the act of living. As he tiptoed to apply more weight on a specific part of Seiko's body, he suggested trying an experiment. If he destroyed enough of her body, would he also be able to destroy her conviction? Seiko groaned even more intensely from the extreme pain she was experiencing as Ininra declared his desire to see her beg for mercy, to see her admit defeat, and admit to everything. But unexpectedly for this smoke yokai, a large portion of the wall to their left suddenly exploded, as if someone had demolished it. This caught Ininra's attention, and as he turned to look, he saw an individual furiously demanding why the long hold up, while dragging along a smoke ninja. It turned out to be Gigi in his evil eye form, who had finally lost patience. He angrily demanded how much longer they planned to keep him waiting. As he walked toward them, Ininra simply stared at Evil Eye. Not long after, Evil Eye's attention was drawn to what was happening to Seiko. He stared intently at her groaning in pain while being stepped on by Ininra, his eyes widening at the sight. However, instead of feeling worried, he suddenly burst into loud laughter and mockingly asked Seiko what had happened to her. He couldn't hold back his boisterous laughter as he questioned how she could possibly have been defeated by a loser like Ininra. He even pointed out how hilarious the thought was, that big strong Seiko had been beaten down so badly. Suddenly, Ininra spoke and called out to Evil Eye, informing him that he would also be taking his power. While Ininra was speaking, Evil Eye immediately hurled the ninja he had been dragging straight at him, but it missed and Ininra transformed into his smoke form, allowing the body to pass right through him. The ninja's body slammed to the ground right after, and Ininra began reforming his solid body. His attention was then caught by something near his feet, noticing that Seiko had vanished from beneath him. He turned sharply to his left in all seriousness and realized why Seiko had disappeared. Evil Eye had swiftly carried her away from him. Evil Eye then gently laid Seiko down on the ground, and while removing his hoodie, he questioned Ininra's earlier statement about taking his powers, mocking him by saying how hilarious he was. He draped his hoodie over Seiko's exposed body afterward, while Ininra continued watching him intently. He began stretching for a moment and then started walking toward the smoke yokai, with an extraordinary aura now radiating from his body. After a brief stretch, he quickly charged at Ininra, who was giving him respect by bowing as he approached. Evil Eye readied his right fist before reaching the yokai, but when he attempted to punch him, to his utter shock, Ininra's body turned into smoke, causing his fist to pass right through. As a counter, before he could even react, Ininra delivered a vertical axe kick that struck solidly against his face, immediately followed by an elbow to the abdomen. As Evil Eye lost his balance, Ininra grabbed him and executed a grapple throw, slamming him into the floor with such force that the wooden boards beneath them shattered. While Evil Eye's body was still pressed to the ground, Ininra charged in once more and delivered a solid left strike to his kidney, shouting Marlboro as he did. But the combo attack didn't end there. While shouting Red Marl, Ininra kicked Evil Eye to the right, then yelled Mar Minth and launched another kick, this time upward. Following that, he shouted Marl Gold and delivered a shin kick to Evil Eye's neck, then elbowed him again, this time straight to the balls, and didn't stop targeting the same area, adding an uppercut that sent him flying into the air. While Evil Eye was still airborne, Ininra unleashed a relentless barrage of punches directly to his nether regions, repeatedly shouting the word gold with each strike. Every single punch targeted his balls, and after the non-stop assault, Ininra finished by kicking him powerfully in the torso while shouting burst, sending him flying a considerable distance away. When Evil Eye landed on the ground headfirst, Ininra casually adjusted his collar. He then began walking forward arrogantly, remarking that so this is an evil eye, commenting further that he was hardly a warrior, all adjusting his gloves. However, Evil Eye caught his attention when he coughed and irritably commented how annoying he was. He then questioned why Ininra was targeting nothing but his nugs, asking if this was supposed to be some kind of nutsack Olympics or something. Because of that, Evil Eye decided that from now on, Ininra's name would be Nug Lover, a statement that clearly didn't sit well with Ininra. Immediately after, Evil Eye once again attempted to deliver a quick punch to the face, but Ininra's body turned to smoke yet again as he commented that his efforts were futile. He then stated that no matter how impressive Evil Eye's physicality, he still couldn't harm Smoke. Just as he was about to add that Evil Eye should accept his defeat, Evil Eye suddenly tried punching him in the face again. Evil Eye began swinging wildly, punching like a madman as he tried to drive the smoke away, shouting that Ininra was a dirty cheat, calling him Nug Lover, and pointing out that people who cheat are bad. Ininra reformed into his solid body once more and delivered a side uppercut to Evil Eye, sending him flying. After that, he told him to stop calling him Nug Lover and pointed out that he was known as the Red Baron. He brushed off the insult and acknowledged that Evil Eye did have power. However, he declared that he was still stronger, and since Evil Eye was weaker than him, he demanded that he accept defeat. Suddenly, Gigi spoke from within Evil Eye and asked him if he would shut up, to which Evil Eye replied that he was telling him he could beat Ininra. Not long after, Evil Eye agreed and said they could swap, but Gigi had to promise to swap back afterward, while Ininra was visibly confused about what was happening and why he was talking to himself. Following this, Evil Eye and Gigi swapped places, and Gigi now had full control of his own body. As he fired his imaginary pistols at Ininra, Gigi asked him how he was doing and playfully announced that Gigi's in the house, while Ininra questioned if his wish was to perish. Ininra warned him that if he took his attacks in his flesh and blood state, he would die. Gigi agreed and added that that would totally suck, but insisted he still had to try everything he could. He further added, while preparing and readying himself to unleash his special move, that he had been through his fair share of fights as well. Ininra retorted that all of his attacks would be futile, and even Evil Eye himself was nothing compared to him. However, when Gigi unleashed his evil gun, it struck Ininra's entire body solidly, shocking him with how he couldn't avoid it using his smoke body, while Gigi, with serious eyes, commented that it worked. Ininra was flung away after being hit by Gigi's evil gun, and afterward, Gigi shouted as he pointed at him using his gun gestures that it worked, while Ininra was visibly stunned by what had happened. He was so shocked that he ended up asking twice if he had really been hit by it. Gigi immediately readied his evil gun again while asking Evil Eye's reaction to his attack and pointing out how awesome he was, and after saying that, he fired another attack at Ininra. Unfortunately, the smoke yokai managed to dodge the attack and quickly closed the distance between them. Gigi suddenly responded with an okay as if he was talking to someone, and just before Ininra's fist could land, he blocked it with his elbow. Ininra was shocked since he didn't expect Gigi to react, but when he stared at Gigi's face, he realized he had just switched places with Evil Eye, and it was Evil Eye's reflexes and strength that blocked him. As a counter, Evil Eye attempted a turning kick against Ininra, but the same thing happened. His leg just passed through when Ininra shifted into smoke form. After phasing through, Ininra quickly spun his body, and once he had his footing, he landed his own turning kick that sent Evil Eye flying. Evil Eye managed to stop himself from being launched too far due to the impact of the kick and immediately readied his fist to counter. Anticipating another charge, Ininra began transforming his body into smoke again, but unexpectedly, he and Gigi switched places once more, with Gigi already prepared to launch another evil gun. Gigi called out to grab his attention and announced that he was back, then unleashed his special move, which landed solidly on the smoke yokai. Unease showed on Ininra's face as he was utterly confused while being blasted away. As he returned to his solid form, Ininra began questioning how this was even happening. He asked how Gigi was even able to attack his body, while Gigi continued using his gun gestures, teasing him that he got him. Gigi then explained that he had an incredibly awesome teacher named Miss Seiko, and while throwing up two peace signs, he added that she was the one who taught him how to use spiral power. After that, we returned to a point in time when Gigi was training with Seiko. She taught him the idea of spintronics. She explained that it's a scientific principle, but for their purposes, they could achieve the same results through spiral training. She told him that the proteins in their bodies are made up of 20 kinds of amino acids called L-form amino acids that rotate to the left. Meanwhile, sugars and genes rotate to the right. And, she added, their properties change depending on the direction of their rotation. Using a bottle cap, she further explained that when releasing energy, the loosening force is a left rotation. On the other hand, when storing energy, the containing force is a right rotation. Against a corporeal enemy, a left rotating Shoho wave is effective, but it's the opposite against an ethereal enemy. The ethereal body exists in a smoke-like state where energy is loose. In other words, it's a left-rotating L form. Therefore, its opposite, the right-spinning Shoho wave, would be effective. After that, Gigi told Seiko that right now, it still takes his maximum effort just to fire a Shoho wave, and he pointed out that he's not yet capable of adding rotation into it, to which Seiko agreed and said that's true. She told him to just tuck away the principles in a corner of his brain for now, because in time, he'd be able to make use of them. We then returned to the present, and as Gigi prepared once more to release a Shoho wave, he pointed out to Aninra that his energy was loose. His smoke-like state meant he was in L form, which meant he was weak against a right rotation. Aninra responded that he had no idea what Gigi was rambling about, but just because he could hit him didn't mean he should start thinking he could win. Suddenly, Aninra vanished from his spot, and with incredible speed reappeared in front of him just as Gigi was about to attack, delivering a solid kick to his face that sent him flying. But fortunately, Gigi managed to switch places with Evil Eye once again. Evil Eye stopped himself from being launched, while Aninra took his stance again. He pointed out to him that if he weren't constantly switching forms like that, he wouldn't be able to endure his attacks, meaning, every time he becomes Evil Eye, he's wrapped in spiritual power and his defense becomes stronger. However, he added that in his Evil Eye state, he couldn't fire the evil gun. After realizing this, Aninra immediately charged again and targeted Evil Eye's lower body, and in an instant, he landed a clean hit to the abdomen, causing him to rise into the air, and then quickly followed up with an uppercut to the chin. Aninra started raining punches toward him while provoking Gigi to try and switch places with him. Aninra deduced that if he couldn't use the evil gun, then his attacks wouldn't land. But, he added, if he took his blows in his flesh and blood state, he would die. He encouraged him to just accept defeat and pointed out that there wasn't even the slightest chance he could win against him, adding that he was far weaker than him. However, to Aninra's surprise, Evil Eye managed to touch his body while kicking his face, seemingly causing an aura to appear behind him, which caught his attention and shattered his focus. Suddenly, Evil Eye unleashed a devastating kick that landed squarely on his smoke body, sending him flying to the ground and breaking it from the force of the impact. He was launched several meters away from Evil Eye, and after he managed to stop himself, he was stunned to hear Evil Eye's voice change as he asked him if he wanted to know how he was going to defeat him. We were then shown Evil Eye, or rather, Gigi, in a new state, now fully in control of the Evil Eye state and actively channeling it. And he said that he was going to beat Aninra because he's a genius, using his usual cheeky tone. Gigi once again gave Aninra two peace signs afterward, while the smoke yokai wiped his injuries. Gigi explained that now that he was in this state, he could use the power of Evil Eye and fire the evil gun, then followed it up by gesturing as if shooting Aninra with two pistols. Aninra then commented, asking if a human and a yokai had fused. Gigi questioned that assumption and laughed, saying he wished he could pull off something that awesome. He informed him that at the moment, he and Evil Eye were switching back and forth at super high speed, which puzzled Aninra. He then pointed out that it was kind of like a light bulb. It flickers at a high speed, so it only looks like it's constantly lit. He said it was a technique the two of them worked out so they could have fun playing Momotaro Dentetsu at the same time. Following that, he added that now he was going to whip this smoke yokai's booty big time while preparing to fire another evil gun. Aninra then readied himself and commented that so in the end, he's just switching back and forth, and his body suddenly turned completely into smoke as he pointed out that his essential nature hadn't changed. Smoke from the yokai began to surround Gigi, catching his attention. As he inhaled, he breathed in some of the smoke, and something about it immediately caught his attention. He fell to his knees and started coughing violently after inhaling it. And once he felt something in his chest, he couldn't believe it. Inenra confirmed his reaction and said that he is smoke, and explained that if he breathes him in, he can enter his lungs. Gigi didn't let Inenra's disturbing move stop him and immediately fired the evil gun to disperse the smoke around him. Unfortunately, he continued coughing and was still affected by Inenra, who then pointed out that not all of the smoke was him. He claimed he wasn't doing anything special, just making use of the smoke as a mechanism, and it seemed that by fusing, Gigi had weakened the power of his evil gun, while he was now wheezing and struggling to breathe. Inenra then said that in order to blow all the smoke out of the area, he would need an evil gun like the one he had when he was still in his flesh and blood form. However, he declared he wouldn't allow him to do that. He would rematerialize and explode his body. Gigi began to recall the scene of Inenra stepping on Seiko, and also remembered when she recently told him that it was okay, and that she knew he could do it. He remembered her words, that if he controlled his chi, it wouldn't matter if there was an obstacle in front of him, and because of that, he fired an evil gun at his own body, which blasted Inenra out and away from him. And he remembered the moment he did something similar on the plane ride. Inenra was launched, crashing into several wooden pillars in the process, and only came to a stop once his body slammed into a wall. He then asked aloud what Gigi had just done and if he had just shot himself. But he was immediately cut off when he was shocked to see that Gigi had already appeared in front of him and declared, "Penalty kick time." He covered his nose and mouth with his right hand and pointed out that Inenra wouldn't be able to get in him like this. Even so, Inenra began turning his body into smoke again while commenting that he shouldn't think that was enough to make him better than him. However, unexpectedly for the smoke yokai, Gigi easily stopped him with a quick evil gunshot that landed solidly on his body and halted his transformation, shocking him. Gigi then explained that even though his power was lowered, he could still stop him from dispersing. He added, while grabbing Inenra by the hair and collar, that when he used his evil gun to squeeze him tightly, it seemed like it took him longer to transform into smoke. Evil Eye then began taking over his control, and next, he stated that the woman Inenra had been standing on earlier, Seiko, had told him that she was going to make him family. So he added in a now serious and menacing tone, not to go stepping on her like she's nothing, which caused visible fear and nervousness in Inenra's eyes. After he said that, Evil Eye and Gigi fully switched places, and Evil Eye immediately unleashed a flurry of punches on every part of Inenra's body that shook his world without a doubt. Amid the fury of punches, he delivered an immensely powerful blow that sent Inenra flying out of the castle and into the nearby lake, leaving his appearance utterly battered as he floated there. Gigi was stunned at the sight and commented that Evil Eye really went overboard as he stared at the hole created when Inenra was blown away, and said he also wanted to complain about it. After that, Gigi picked up the beaten Seiko and remarked that if his master had been in top form, she could have insta-killed a guy like him. While that was happening, we shift to the lower floor of the castle, where the smoke ninjas together with Inenra and the chameleon were slowly making their move to ambush Vamola and Momo. However, something unusual happened when suddenly one of the ninjas was dragged away, which caught the attention of another. The unidentified creature then targeted the one who noticed it, and when the two other ninjas on the opposite side turned, whoever was responsible swiftly dealt with them as well. By the side of a wooden pillar, it was revealed to us that the chameleon was camouflaged there. He was extremely nervous and deeply puzzled, wondering what exactly was happening. Ironically, he pointed out that it was totally unfair that they had an enemy there who could not be seen. He commented that they were even better hidden than him, the great reptilian, the space ninja. But, he added, even he himself was camouflaging along the side of a pillar, so he strongly believed that the creature couldn't see him either, while referring to it as core. Suddenly, his enemy shouted that they could see him and kept pointing at him repeatedly, which completely shocked him. Not long after, it turned out that it was actually Vamola and Momo behind all of it while also invisible, and Vamola managed to land a powerful punch on this space ninja, her fist striking solidly against his face and sending him flying. Momo cheered at this and exclaimed, "Nice one," and she also said that even if that chameleon tried to hide, his aura was plain as day, to which Vamola thanked her while calling her Little Miss Pixie. Momo then asked if that meant Vamola could see her too, and Vamola happily agreed, explaining that her suit displayed a projection of her. Because of that, Momo joyfully deduced that she could be perceived through the kaiju suit, while Vamola continued to call her Miss Pixie and asked why she would help a fellow like her, which made Momo shout at her not to say that since it was too sad. Before long, they had already made it out of the castle, which made Momo happy as she urged Vamola to hurry. She said they needed to return to the shrine as soon as possible, otherwise they wouldn't be able to perform the ritual to lift the curse. They then spotted the taxi they had taken earlier from afar, prompting Momo to shout to get their attention. Gigi immediately heard them and turned toward them, saying it was perfect timing, while Momo was startled to see Evil Eye reverted back into Gigi, and she asked why he was completely naked. Her chatter suddenly stopped when she saw her grandmother, gravely wounded and unconscious, being carried by Gigi. Because of this, both she and Vamola screamed out in alarm as they rushed quickly toward them. Gigi asked the driver to open the door and told Momo to help him get Seiko inside. Once the door was opened, they slowly placed her into the back seat, and the deep concern was clear on Vamola's face as tears formed while she looked at her. Momo immediately went to Seiko once she was inside the car and shouted her name in great worry. Gigi explained to them that her broken ribs had been severely damaged and that he was only using his chi to ease her pain, but he didn't know what was happening internally. Momo repeatedly called out to her granny as tears streamed down her face in sorrow, and Seiko managed to respond faintly by calling her name, though she was weak. She urged them to hurry to the shrine because there was no more time. Momo told her not to try and speak since she was already too weak. Unfortunately, they suddenly felt a powerful tremor in the surroundings, which made them stop in their tracks. Momo wondered what was happening, while Gigi thought it was an earthquake. The violent shaking continued, and then a voice came from the castle, shouting furiously at them that they would not get away with this, and how dare they defile and tear apart his pride as a space ninja. He pointed out that what he meant was they were being even more of a ninja than him, while calling them knuckleheads. On their side, Vamola quickly pointed out where the voice was coming from, urging them to look there. They saw something behind the trees and bushes, which caused their eyes to widen and their mouths to gape in shock. It was then shown to us that the Japanese castle now had 6 chameleon legs beneath it, allowing it to move, and a chameleon head on the upper floor, while the ninjas were tied to what seemed to be kites and floating around the space ninja. Vamola shouted out how big it was, while Gigi worriedly asked what that thing was. The chameleon face shouted that this was his true mighty form while calling them stupid idiots, and that he had been camouflaged as the castle. Because of that, Gigi realized what had happened to the ninjas inside the castle, but the space ninja cut him off and said that they were being cultivated inside his bowels, likening them to bifidobacteria. The reptilian then began to move while shouting that he would not stand for ninja wannabes like them, and added that nothing boiled his blood more than a clumsy fool pretending to be a ninja. Gigi immediately prepared to unleash an evil gun while shouting back that the reptilian was talking about himself, and he also told Vamola, who was already preparing her kaiju suit, that they had to return to the shrine now. Momo then called out to him, instantly catching his attention. She ordered Gigi to go to the hospital with Seiko and firmly said that she didn't care about the curse anymore and that it was more important to help Granny. Gigi was shocked and worried to hear this, prompting him to ask if she was sure, pointing out that everyone might end up forgetting her. But Momo answered that none of that mattered and ordered him to ease Seiko's pain. Momo then looked intently at Seiko and said sorry, saying it was all her fault. Tears began to flow from her eyes as she added that if Seiko still remembered her, they would talk again. After that, Momo steeled herself and jumped away from Seiko, and while tightly clinging to Vamola, who was already running toward the reptilian space ninja, she asked Gigi to take care of Seiko, to which Gigi immediately replied that he would. Memories of her granny and how she laughed lingered in Momo's mind, which weighed heavily on her emotions as she prepared for the sacrifice she was about to make. Before long, the taxi started driving toward the shrine, while she and Vamola were left behind to face the chameleon, who had now turned into a Japanese castle. While Vamola was running, Momo called out to her and instructed her to let her inside her suit, which Vamola immediately did. As soon as Momo entered, she appeared as nothing more than a small white human figure for Vamola. She asked if Vamola was aware of her presence, to which she agreed and explained that the suit was detecting her. After that, Momo instructed her to generate an empty space, which Vamola promptly did after transforming into a giant kaiju. The reptilian space ninja was startled when suddenly her body expanded enormously. Following that, Momo instructed Vamola to perform their invisible ninja attack. So as Vamola shouted the word ninja, she made her kaiju suit invisible and charged swiftly toward their enemy. Once she had gained momentum, Vamola readied her fist and used the blast wind thrust attack. However, the reptilian managed to dodge them by performing a backflip despite his size. This caused Momo to shout out in frustration that they missed, and she began to wonder if that bastard could really see them. The reptilian space ninja then told them that trick would not work on him, pointing out that the power they were using was retro-reflective projection technology. He then further informed them that the kite ninjas he had flying around provided definite verification of her form. As a counter against them, the reptilian used his move, Ninja Art, Sakura Riot, where his ninjas began throwing countless spherical objects. Before long, those exploded, revealing themselves as fireworks, and surrounded Vamola's kaiju suit. Momo was shocked that they were suddenly enclosed by them, but she also commented that they looked beautiful, while Vamola pointed out to her that those were explosives. She explained that her suit's endurance gauge was already dropping, which puzzled Momo and prompted her to ask what that meant. Vamola answered that once the endurance gauge reached 0, her suit would suddenly become floppy, and they wouldn't be able to use any of its powers. Because of that, Momo also began to worry, saying that was bad news, while Vamola added that it would take a full day for the endurance gauge to recover. After that, Momo instructed Vamola to close in on their enemy, explaining that if they fought at close range, he would also take in the blasts, making it harder for him to set off the fireworks. She added that she knew about that because she had once fought Vamola herself. She pointed out that the power of her kaiju suit was unreal and further instructed her to use her own strength against their enemy. On the side of the reptilian space ninja, he arrogantly called them fools and declared that he was a true ninja, saying that a phony like them could never compare. Vamola tried several times to strike the reptilian with her kaiju tail, a straight punch, an uppercut, and a frontal kick, but all of those were dodged with ease. Because of that, he mockingly asked them what's the matter, pointing out that they weren't even landing hits on him, unlike his attacks, which were striking them like crazy with his Sakura Riot. The indicator of Vamola's suit's endurance gauge began beeping violently due to the countless hits it was taking. Before long, her kaiju suit completely ran out of endurance gauge, causing it to gradually shrink back to its normal size and collapse on the ground. Because of this, the reptilian shouted ninja and said that was too bad for them while calling them half-wits. He added that it had now been determined who among them was the real ninja. After that, the reptilian space ninja raised one of his feet, and while saying that there was no way a twerp like them could ever overcome his might, he began stomping heavily on Vamola. This caused the ground beneath Vamola to shatter. The reptilian muttered oops afterward, saying he might end up killing them before he could steal their powers, but he brushed it off, adding that it would be faster to simply hand over their corpses to the Serpoians for dissection. Suddenly, Momo spoke out of nowhere, asking what exactly the reptilian thought he was attacking, which startled him. Because of that, the reptilian was flustered and started yelling, asking where the voice was coming from, while Momo mockingly said that he wasn't even speaking like a ninja. Annoyed, the reptilian called her a fake ninja twerp, then changed his manner of speaking and demanded that she come out so he could kill her. But Momo told him it was too late to change the way he talked, while calling him an asshole. She ordered him to listen to her and asked if he had ever heard of the tale of Isenbashi. She explained that it was a story about a big dumbass like him, but a little twerp entered his body and defeated him. As she was explaining this, it was revealed to us that Vamola was already inside the reptilian's castle body, carrying countless firework bombs. After that, Momo also informed the reptilian that incidentally, they had taken a large number of fireworks from his bifidobacteria and scattered them throughout his body. Because of that, the reptilian grew alarmed and cried out in worry. The space ninja began jumping around violently, shouting that it wasn't funny and demanding they come out of his body, while calling them half-wits. Momo, on the other hand, mockingly wondered what organ they were looking at inside him, while Vamola immediately punched it, causing the reptilian to scream in pain, shouting that he would shake them out of his body. Momo countered that there was no chance of that happening, saying that even when they were caught up in a typhoon, they had managed to hold on to the airplane. She then said that after what he did to her grandma, he was not getting away, not you people, and she said this while remembering the state Seiko was in when she saw her earlier. Momo then began preparing her special move, while the reptilian, filled with panic, kept shouting ninja before his entire body exploded as Momo finally unleashed her Momo Tri-Beam, detonating all the fireworks inside their enemy. Inside the exploding Japanese castle space ninja, Momo used her powers to wrap her body and Vamola's with a shield so that they would not be hit by the blast. Little by little, the space ninja's body began to collapse from the force of the explosion, and soon it crashed down to the ground, causing massive amounts of debris. Momo also fell to the ground afterward, commenting that the spot where she landed was scorching hot. She immediately remembered their situation, so she asked Vamola if they had already defeated the chameleon. However, as she turned her eyes around the area, all she could see were straws and leaves. She was puzzled by this and wondered aloud what it was she was seeing. It seemed as though the place she had ended up in had suddenly turned into farmland, making her nervously question whether this was really how the area around the castle was supposed to look. After that, when she widened her view, she saw that the entire city she was in seemed to be gradually transforming into nothing more than vast farmland. She was shocked at this and began to wonder if that space ninja had merely mimicked the entire town, which irritated her to the point that she called them damn space alien bastards. She started shouting Vamola's name while asking if she was there. Before long, she realized that since she could not use her kaiju suit, she would not be able to detect her. Because of that, her anxiety grew, so she tried calling out to Vamola, telling her not to leave carelessly, and she also grew irritated because her small size made it impossible for her to see very far. She began to wander around this vast area, and when she reached a roadside, she scanned her surroundings once more. While gazing into the distance, Momo began to wonder if Seiko was okay and if she had managed to make it to the hospital. Particles seemed to start separating from her body at that moment, and she quietly asked herself what time it was by now. As more and more particles drifted away from her body, she gazed at the moon, and tears began to fall as she realized she had run out of time. She could no longer hold back her emotions because of her situation, and she commented that she felt unbearably lonely. She remembered all her loved ones and said that she wanted to go home. Her body began to glow as more particles surrounded her, and before long, she suddenly vanished, leaving only the particles behind. Those particles drifted away with the wind across the vast area. From the end of the pathway, a group of unknown beings slowly emerged and walked closer to the spot where Momo had disappeared. Soon after, a group of individuals was revealed to us. They were wearing outfits resembling those of Japanese Shinto priests, except their faces were covered by paper inscribed with a drawn circle, and the leader of the group wore a terrifying mask. Instead of holding a shaku, he carried a long staff. We were given a close-up of the mask's appearance, and afterward, the group continued stepping closer toward where Momo had vanished, their footsteps moving in unison. They eventually stopped, and the masked one asked aloud if it was true that she was there. He knelt down and lowered his hands as if offering someone a ride, then said that if that was the case, she should climb aboard. He told her not to worry because matters concerning her two friends had already been concluded, and then we were shown what appeared to be a boat made of leaves. He added that it was now her turn to follow. After that, the masked individual transported Momo to a shrine hidden deep within a cavern. It had a very long staircase with two torii gates, and at the top stood a shrine decorated with sun-like rays on its roof and base. Upon entering the shrine, the masked priest handed the staff he was holding to one of his attendants, then walked to the center of the shrine where a pool of water and prepared priests awaited. He slowly lowered the makeshift boat onto the water, then took the wooden mallet handed to him by his assistant. He rolled up his sleeves in preparation and, after a brief moment of focus, gently tapped the water with the mallet, sending ripples across its surface. The light current made the makeshift boat sway slightly, and when the water calmed again, it suddenly erupted upward in an explosive spray that reached as high as the protruding rocks on the ceiling. Afterward, the masked priest lifted the mallet high, as though offering it in reverence, while one of his two companions held clothing identical to theirs, and the other began searching through the water. When one of the priests grasped something, the other quickly assisted him. Moments later, the two of them were carrying the unconscious Momo, who had now returned to her normal size. After that, the scene shifted to Momo's thoughts, where she felt the tap of the masked priest on the pool of water earlier, along with the ripple it caused. Here, we were shown what seemed to be her spirit, still with eyes closed, until she suddenly awoke lying on a futon. She quickly sat upright with confusion written all over her face. She scanned her surroundings to see where she had ended up, and when she turned to her left, she saw that Vamola was lying beside her, sound asleep. She said nothing and only stared in complete bewilderment, and after a while, she decided to stand up and walk around what seemed to be a Japanese-style hotel. She explored the area without much thought, hoping to learn something, and while wandering, she was approached by a woman with bangs that hid half of her face. The woman greeted her with good morning and asked if she had slept well last night, to which she paused briefly before agreeing. The woman then offered to get her some coffee, which caught Momo's attention, prompting her to ask if that was really okay. The woman replied that she would bring it right away and pointed out where she could sit. Before the woman could leave, Momo excused herself and said that she expected her guardian to be there, but she hadn't seen her belongings. She asked if maybe she was staying in another room, to which the woman replied that she would check and asked her to wait for a moment. The woman left, and Momo once again looked around, her eyes eventually falling on a pond at the side. Moments later, the woman returned and asked if the person she had mentioned earlier was Miss Seiko, the one who had made the reservations, and Momo agreed. The woman then explained that she had been told Seiko was currently at the hospital in the city. Momo grew deeply concerned and worried upon hearing this, while the woman added that Seiko was injured and unable to come, which was why her room had been canceled. Momo hurriedly took off her robe, asking if the woman could tell her where that hospital was, and the woman agreed, saying they could even prepare a car to take her there. Momo then remembered something and told the woman that there was someone she didn't know sleeping in her room. We were briefly shown the place where Momo had stayed, and in the next scene, we were taken to the hospital where Seiko was said to be confined. As soon as Momo stepped out of the car, she rushed inside and went straight to the front desk to inquire about her granny. After finding out which room Seiko was in, she immediately headed there, and before long, she arrived at room 201, where she saw her granny's name. Upon entering, she slowly peeked past the sheet that hung on one side, and as she did, she immediately heard Gigi's voice scolding Seiko not to do something, to which Seiko shouted back that she really wanted arabiki sausage. She already seemed lively again, able to get angry and raise her voice. She ordered Gigi to go to a convenience store and buy her arabiki sausage, but Gigi told him she couldn't eat that kind of food, reminding her that the doctor had said she could only eat a little at a time. Because of that, Seiko angrily asked if he really thought she would listen to some goddamn quack. Soon after, Momo revealed herself, and with a poker face, she asked what she was doing while calling her an old bag. Gigi's face lit up immediately upon seeing her, but just as he was about to call out to Momo, she bluntly asked why her granny was in a hospital in Shimane. Shock filled Seiko's eyes upon seeing her as she asked when they had come to that place. Seiko could no longer hold back her happiness and immediately embraced her granddaughter, startling Momo and making her blush as she demanded to know what her deal was, pointing out that she was embarrassing her. Nevertheless, Seiko didn't let go, while Momo asked her to answer what's the matter. Tears of joy welled in Gigi's eyes as he commented that thank goodness she had returned to normal, and he asked to let him hug her too. However, it seemed that Momo had developed amnesia because she asked Gigi who he was and how he even knew her name. Because of that, Gigi was completely shocked, which also caught Seiko's attention. Seiko let go of her embrace, and while holding onto both of Momo's shoulders, she asked if she truly did not recognize Gigi. Momo, puzzled, asked in return. Not long after, she was stunned and in disbelief as she asked if the one she was referring to was Gigi, her former classmate back in elementary school, then followed it up by asking Gigi what he was doing there. Gigi, still utterly confused, could only say her name, while Seiko looked at Momo with worry. The three of them stared at one another in the strangeness of the moment, until the scene suddenly shifted to Okarun and Manjiro. Here, while Okarun struggled with all his might to maintain a headstand, he said it was crazy, asked Manjiro how long he would make him keep it up, and added that he could die at any moment. Manjiro answered while perfectly executing what he was attempting, telling him to visualize his chi flowing straight to the top of his head, from the bottom of his stomach to the crown of his head. Soon after, Okarun fell over, groaning in frustration, to which Manjiro simply accepted his progress and told him to always keep that visualization in his mind. Afterward, Manjiro handed him a bucket and a long glass cleaner, telling him that this would be his next task. He instructed him to first use the glass cleaner to wipe the windows from top to bottom, which Okarun diligently did. After that, he asked him to also clean the hallways until they were spotless, and while he was doing so, Manjiro taught him to keep his head lowered and to do everything at a dash. Then, while Okarun wrung out the rag he had been using to clean the floor, Manjiro told him that at all times, he must focus his energy on the point below his navel and visualize himself beaming chi out from the top of his head. While he was still wringing it, Manjiro suddenly shoved him and shouted Dasakoi, sending him tumbling and crying out in pain. Manjiro explained afterward that if he could still be knocked down so easily, he had a long way to go, adding that somehow Gigi had learned it so easily. Okarun's face showed exhaustion and irritation at that point. Someone who looked strikingly similar to Sakamoto, if you knew him, then approached Manjiro and thanked them, saying he could hardly believe they were cleaning for them. Manjiro told him not to think about it. He explained that since they were lodging for free while staying in Kamigo City, it was only right for them to at least do that much, while Okarun continued scrubbing the hallways. After that, Okarun began sweeping the leaves outside, and while he was at it, Manjiro told him to lower his hips and keep his back straight, which he immediately followed. As he did so, Momo came back to his mind, and with certainty, he told himself that she would return. He blushed as he thought of her. The scene then shifted back to Seiko's side, where, after they told Momo about the aliens, she responded dismissively and firmly commented that there's no way they could be real. In the next scene, we suddenly shift to a bakery called Tasty Geezer Breads. Inside, we are shown two bakers working on bread. When given a closer look, it turns out that they are Count Saint Germain and the human-like alien, where Count Saint Germain praises the alien for rolling the dough and asks her to just continue in that manner. The human-like alien then shouted back at him, asking what is the meaning of this. Count Saint Germain reminded her that hadn't he already said he wanted her to help him here, to which she replied that that wasn't what she meant, pointing out if he wasn't supposed to kill that Takakura kid, referring to Okarun, where Count Saint Germain said wasn't that her objective. The alien responded that the suit he gave her was totally useless. Because of that, he asked if that didn't simply mean that she was just far too weak. He told her that she would never accomplish anything if she kept herself too busy pointing fingers and blaming others. He then pointed out to her that what mattered right now was that he wanted her to do solid work in this bakery, adding that that was the reason why he had hired her after all. The human-like alien then asked why she had to make bread, to which he answered that it was because she was a baker, which made her yell out that she was not a baker. Because of that, Count Saint Germain then informed her that outside of working hours, she was free to do anything she pleased with her time. However, he added, since he had hired her, he pointed out that she was a baker. After that, he dropped the eerie tone and invited the alien once again to make tasty geezer bread together, which made her shout at him to stop being ridiculous. Just then, the smoking oven caught his attention, making him mutter, "Oh dear," and comment that it looked like he had overbaked it. But it wasn't smoke from the oven at all, as suddenly Aninra came out of it, with the wounds he had sustained while fighting Gigi still visible. Aninra and Count Saint-Germain looked at each other, and he sarcastically asked who he might be. Aninra replied that he wished he wouldn't react like that every single time they met, while the human-like alien asked who he was, and Count Saint-Germain said that his wish was for Aninra not to enter the kitchen because he reeked of tobacco, inviting him to talk somewhere else. As they went outside of the kitchen, still on his knees, Aninra apologized to Count Saint-Germain, addressing him as Sir, and explained that the lizards sent by the Serpo to help only got in his way. He then took out a thin box and said he was returning the Kozuka knife that had been lent to him. That plan, he said, had been his, so he was taking full responsibility for its failure. He then added that he would eventually reclaim the abilities given to those individuals. Count Saint-Germain refused this and explained that things may remain as they were now, adding that his intention was not wrong. He then pointed out that they had obtained deeply fascinating data on yokai suitability and the development of their powers. He said that in fact, Aninra had discovered an extraordinary gift in Cookie Yukishiro, and he had managed to level up her Lord of the Flies ability. But he added that since he had come out into the open, the Sorcerers Association would probably take action, explaining that it was going to be hard for them to act from now on. Aninra then informed him that the Serpo had asked them for help, but they never showed their faces, to which Count Saint-Germain replied that he didn't trust them, and likely they felt the same way about them. He then pointed out that only humans were capable of using yokai powers, and those aliens weren't making any attempt to understand that fact. After that, he suggested that what they should do instead was befriend Okarun and the others with him, so they could create the ultimate yokai. As he said this, we were then shown a strange scene of a man sitting on a device connected with countless tubes to Buddha-like figures placed in a larger circular design. While this was happening, we shifted to the situation of the human-like alien who was arranging the bread on display. She showed her irritation at Count Saint-Germain and called him a bastard, asking what he thought he was doing. Suddenly, a little girl called her baker lady, which got her attention. The girl handed her something and said it was for her. She stared at what was being given and saw that it was an origami crane, which surprised her. The girl's mother explained that they always came there because the bread was additive-free and so tasty, so her daughter wanted to make something for her too. Because of this, the human-like alien felt something soothing within her and took the origami crane from the child's hand. After that, the mother bid farewell while her daughter waved goodbye, and she looked at the gift she received with a happy aura. Outside, Aninra saw them while he posed as a bystander in a long hoodie. As he looked at the bakery, he began commenting that he didn't understand why Count Saint-Germain and the alien were pretending to be common people, then asked himself what he was hoping to achieve. Was he doing that just to make friends with them? He wondered, and he questioned the idea that a noble would ever be friends with commoners, commenting that it was impossible with an angry grin. In the next scene, we return to the hospital in Shimane where Seiko was confined, and here Gigi told her about Aninra's self-proclaimed title as the Red Baron. When she heard this, she asked if that was really what he called himself, which Gigi confirmed. He explained that he didn't know if that was his actual name, but it looked like that was what he wanted to be called. Seiko understood that and said she thought she was starting to get the picture now. After that, she explained to Gigi that a long time ago, an exorcist friend of hers had been grievously injured during a mission overseas. She added that it was caused by a formidable enemy that even the local shaman couldn't exorcise. She continued that in a way he was prepared for it, but the enemy was not yokai but humans. She then told Gigi that they called themselves the Black Paladins, and that they collected powers from yokai and curses, and then became diviners in large companies to crush rival corporations. Furthermore, she said that diviners attached to companies were supposed to provide advice on business direction and investments, but those people instead launched attacks using curses. And a well-known figure in that industry was an assassin who called himself the Flying Ace. She commented that just hearing the name was enough to make some companies run for cover. She didn't stop there and continued explaining that they mostly operated overseas, but it seemed they were operating here now too. Gigi then commented with a worried tone if wasn't that bad, and asked if that meant there were even more of them. Seiko then said that the Sorcerers Association had already issued various warnings, and that the enemy shouldn't be able to act that easily. After that, she apologized and tried to explain that she was supposed to be the one protecting them, but it seemed like it was the other way around. But Gigi didn't let her finish and told her that she always protected them, and that he had only been able to defeat Ninra thanks to her. As they were talking, we were shown Vamola joyfully hugging Momo, and since Momo couldn't remember them, he tried to make her stop and asked who she was. But before long he remembered that she was the woman he had seen in his room at the inn, while Vamola was already crying with happiness upon seeing her. Seiko then said, well, in any case, she was happy that they were okay. But their problem now was that Momo even forgot how to use her powers. In the next scene, we shift to Okarun, who was walking toward their school with his right hand raised, index finger pointing upward like an antenna, while his left hand rested at the center of his abdomen. While doing this, he told himself to gather the energy at the point beneath his navel and visualize himself beaming chi from the top of his head. 2 female students noticed him while he was doing it, and one of them pointed at him, causing both to laugh out loud, while Okarun blushed in embarrassment. He passed by a few more students, but as he continued, he thought that even though it was embarrassing, he just had to grin and endure it. He added that, for now, this was something he needed to do. Suddenly, someone bumped into his raised arm, catching his attention. When he turned, it turned out to be Aira, who was copying what he was doing, which made some of the male students around them blush in envy. She greeted him good morning with a smile and asked what they were doing there. He was surprised and asked how her injuries were and if she was okay now, to which Aira nodded. She explained that Queen Sensei kept massaging her back, and before she knew it, she was already healed. Okarun was taken aback and deeply amazed, while Aira added that Queen Sensei possessed the power to heal people's injuries, noting that those were her exact words. She also said that even though Queen Sensei had powers, she didn't think she was any kind of enemy, and commented that she was actually incredibly kind. After that, she said that when they arrived at the hospital, Queen Sensei spent nearly an hour throwing up in the bathroom. She explained that she said the level of her illness reflected the amount of healing energy she had to provide. Aira then pointed out that if Queen Sensei was really an enemy, she wouldn't have done something like that, and Okarun agreed. Aira then cheerfully asked what exactly they were doing, to which Okarun clarified that apparently, it was some kind of training to increase his spiritual power. Aira understood and asked if that was the same thing Gigi had to do, to which he replied that it wasn't easy. He added that apparently, if one could draw up his chi properly, even if someone pushed him, he wouldn't budge. Because of that, Aira playfully decided to push him, making him lose his balance a bit, which led him to scold her, prompting Aira to tease him, saying that was an epic fail since he still moved. Then suddenly, a man shouted from in front of them, telling them to stop, commenting that he was jealous of their flirting so early in the morning, which caught their attention. Okarun was thrilled when he saw that it was Gigi, who was dancing energetically and happily exclaimed that he had missed them so much. Gigi immediately hugged Okarun afterward, leaving him shocked by his return, while Aira asked how Momo was and what had happened. Gigi's expression turned serious, and just when it seemed like he was about to deliver bad news, he suddenly brightened up again, bursting with energy as he exclaimed that she was all better now, which made Aira cheer in relief and comment that she wondered if Momo would come to school today. Gigi then pointed to their side and said that she'd shown up right on cue, prompting both Okarun and Aira to look. A look of awe washed over Okarun's face when he saw Momo's signature socks approaching, and soon enough, he saw her in full, back to her normal size, with Vamola happily waving beside her. They locked eyes for a moment, but it seemed that Okarun was the only one who felt pure happiness judging by their reaction. Aira joyfully greeted Momo, saying she had really come back, and added with a playful tone that she was so cute when she was tiny, to which Momo gave no reply. Vamola ran toward Okarun, happily saying that they were back, so he welcomed her, while Gigi jumped up and down cheering in excitement. Okarun tried to talk to Momo to welcome her too, but she responded weakly and uncertainly with a confused thanks, which immediately made him curious and concerned. Ira then jumped in and said to hold on a second. She asked where Momo's enthusiasm had gone and why she was acting with such attitude. She pointed out that they had been so worried about her, sounding slightly irritated, so Gigi stepped in and tried to calm her down, saying she should let him explain first. Momo then asked who Ira even was, which left both Okarun and Ira shocked and confused. Gigi quickly moved between them, nervously shouting for them to wait and let him explain, and asked them to stop. But Momo wasn't backing down and leaned forward with annoyance, saying that Ira was the one with the attitude. Because of that, Momo and Ira started arguing, making Gigi lean to the side with a deeply worried expression as he pleaded for Momo to stop talking for now. Annoyed, Momo pointed out everything Ira had done, coming at her like she knew her, talking about her enthusiasm, and saying she had attitude, then insisted that she should just shut up. Ira, growing irritated as well, asked what she was even saying and called her a dumb skank, while Vamola looked on in confusion and Okarun began to worry. Momo grew angrier and shouted who she was calling a skank, calling Ira one in return. Ira fired back that she only turned away for 1 second, and there she was, polished into a perfect skank. Momo replied that what she was saying didn't even make sense while still calling her a skank, then added that she should at least learn how to speak clearly. The two of them were fully heated now, while Vamola shouted between them in panic, and Gigi, oddly enough, sighed in relief, saying that everything was finally back to normal, which Okarun immediately denied, saying that it wasn't, and that everything was wrong. Moments later, as they continued walking towards school, Gigi explained that Momo had developed amnesia. He added that they didn't know from what point she lost her memories, but her memories of meeting them, at least, had completely disappeared. He also informed them that they had been attacked in Shimane, and Miss Seiko was badly injured. He added that Momo had prioritized Miss Seiko's life over lifting her own curse. After that, he said that the priest there came rushing to help and lifted the curse, but it was just a bit too late. Because of this, Okarun began remembering all the moments he shared with Momo, the happy times and the heartfelt memories they had together. Gigi continued and said that Momo seemed confused too, and she had become extremely nervous. He also said that he had spoken with Seiko about it, and she told him to leave things as they were for now. Okarun then looked at Momo, who was walking in front of him, feeling the weight and uneasiness of the situation. In the next scene, they finally arrived at school. When Momo entered their classroom, Miko was surprised and commented that it had been such a long time since they last saw each other. She also said that Momo had skipped a lot of school days, so Momo told them to listen first as she explained that she had recently lost her memories. Kei commented that it sounded mysterious. She also told them that she had gone to Shimane out of the blue, which intrigued Kei, who said that it was totally wicked. In Gigi's thoughts, he said that it seemed Momo still remembered Miko and Kei. The scene then moved to Okarun's classroom, where Vamola and Sakata were peeking at him because he was sitting quietly at his desk, head down. As he did, he remembered the times when Momo called out to him to eat lunch together, ran after him so they could walk home together, and all the moments she wanted to play around with him. He felt those memories deeply and began telling himself that Momo was always calling out to him. He said it made him happy, so he always waited for her to do it, adding that Momo calling out to him was something he always looked forward to. When the school bell rang, he opened his eyes and immediately stood up from his desk. He left the classroom, deciding that this time, he would be the one to call out to Momo, and started walking toward her classroom.